The purpose of this presentation is to provide you with an introduction to the ESRC's studentship application process for 2020 entry. This presentation will provide you a brief introduction to the student application process. For more detailed information on the process, follow the link provided. Particular attention should be paid to shortlisting scoring, which can be found on page 19, how interviews are scored, which can be found again on page 19, the nomination templates, and the host institution interview lists. There are a number of changes from the 2018 to 2019 entry that you should be aware of. The requirement for pathway leads to provide an individual Annex Ii for each candidate has been removed. Pathway leads will now jointly submit one agreed Annex Ii per nominated candidate. Note that in the case of disagreements among pathway leads, there is still an option for each individual pathway lead to submit an individual Annex Ii per student. The application deadline is now moved to the 21st of January 2020 at 12 noon. By the 4th of February of 2020, pathway leads at each institution will need to have completed their initial shortlisting. It is recommended that academic references are in place at the point of submission. However, if this is not possible, they will be chased up only for those interview shortlisted candidates by the institutional administrators. Annex Ii does not need to be completed for all applications at the initial institutional shortlisting stage. The purpose of this stage is simply to make sure that applications are strong enough to proceed. Once the committee has agreed which students should be advanced for the interview process, the leads will then complete Part 1 of Annex Ii jointly for those students who have been shortlisted for the interview stage. In the case of any unforeseen circumstances, such as strike action, the Management Board will make a decision on any changes to the process, rules and timings. Slide 4. Key points for supervisors and pathway leads. The supervisor statement, Annex B, must have been submitted by the application closing date, which is the 21st of January 2020. Otherwise, student applications will not be considered. So make sure to meet with your student well in advance of the application submission date to discuss the nature and the purpose of their project. Each shortlisted applicant must have a team of 2 supervisors in place, with the lead supervisor having supervised at least one student to completion, although not necessarily as lead supervisor. For interdisciplinary pathways, the lead supervisor will be from the student's home institution. The location of the second supervisor will be based upon academic grounds. They will ideally be from a second SWDTP institution and in a separate discipline. In exceptional cases, however, it is possible to appoint a second supervisor from the lead supervisor's home institution. However, this individual must be from a different discipline to maintain the interdisciplinarity of the programme. There would also need to be a second joint supervisor from another one of the SWDTP partner institutions, however, leading to at least 3 supervisors on that proposal. While it is not a requirement for students on non-interdisciplinary pathways to have an additional supervisor from a partner institution, the SWDTP would support such collaborations. Pathway leads must check both 1+3 and +3 eligibility in all candidates. To find out more information about this process, see page 3 of the supporting document. If you have any doubts as to whether a student should be a 1+3 or a +3 student, pathway leads can ask for the guidance of their institutional administrators. Following the interview process, the panel must complete and submit 2 forms, namely the Annex C and the Annex E. The Annex C is mandatory. As previously noted, pathway leads must complete a single agreed Annex C per nominated applicant with scoring and accompanying narrative. An optional submission of individual annexes to record divergent views or disagreements within a pathway are available. Annex E is also mandatory. Pathway leads must submit a completed nominations template with a ranked list of students to the awards ratification committee. They must also indicate which candidates, if any, meet any of the specific ESRC steers, such as the use of ESRC datasets or cross-council studentships. Completion of this form is mandatory. The ARC will not accept any nomination lists that have not been fully completed or have been completed incorrectly. An example of a common error that is provided is the ranking of two candidates as being joint first in an application process. The process and timeline for all SWDTP applications is as follows. More detailed information can be found in the supporting document on pages 5 through 11. The studentship application deadline is the 21st of January 2020 at 12 noon. By the 4th of February, pathway leads within each institution will have completed their initial shortlisting and informed their institutional administrator which students will be considered for the screening process. From the 5th of February, pathway leads will be able to access on SharePoint all applications across institutions for their specific pathway. By the 14th of February, pathway leads will then have agreed upon and informed the host administrator the rankings for the interviews. They should also have completed Part 1 of Annex Ii, providing shortlisting scores that should be jointly completed for each student. In the week commencing the 17th of February, the institutional administrators will send out interview invitations and chase any outstanding external academic references for interview for shortlisted candidates. The interviews for each candidate will commence in the week of 2nd of March. The deadline for pathway leads to submit all paperwork is the 18th of March. This paperwork should be submitted to the host administrator and should include a completed Annex C and Annex E nominations template. The Awards and Ratification Committee, also known as the ARC, will meet on the 25th to 26th of March to rank and allocate all of the studentship applications. You can find out more about the ARC in the supporting document on page 7 through 8. Each of the institutions involved in the SWDTP are represented on the panel. Several of the ARC members have been part of this committee for more than 4 to 5 years and are very experienced in this process. The SWDTP Director, Dr. Margherita Paracini, will chair the ARC with the assistance from the SWDTP Manager, Sonia Foster. The ARC will first consider the scores of the top-ranked applicants in the ESRC steers and interdisciplinary pathways. They will determine if these applications are of an acceptable standard and if they meet the necessary criteria for a studentship award. The ARC will then create one rank list of all remaining applicants, and this will include the applications from all students on both disciplinary and interdisciplinary pathways. The ARC will allocate studentships using all of the information provided. This will include the Annex C, the Annex E, academic references, CVs, letters of support from proposed collaborating institutions, and academic transcripts. At each stage of the studentship allocation process, the ARC will ensure transparency and consistency of process. This will be achieved by the inclusion of the Director of the Welsh DTP on the ARC panel. He will observe the studentship application process and make sure that all processes are followed appropriately. In order to meet the good governance criteria, it is essential that pathways submit the correct information in time. The ARC will award a total of 45 studentships and will create an additional ratified and ranked reserve list that will consist of nominated candidates that have not been offered an award initially, yet are deemed fundable. The results of the ARC panel will then be communicated to each institution. On the 26th and 27th of March, institutional administrators at each site are informed of the ARC's final decision regarding which students will receive offers. Each institution will make the offers following their own local institutional processes and rules. Close communication between the administrators and the SWDTP manager will ensure that where offers are rejected, the next ranked candidate in the open competition will get an offer, unless a STEER has to be met. Administrators at each site will liaise with academics to answer any queries regarding funding decisions, +3 or 1+3 awards, and any other ARC requirements. Detailed information pertaining to all forms, processes and requirements can be found in the supporting Studentship application document. Detailed timeline of the application process can be found in pages 10 to 11. Entry requirements for what constitutes a 1+3 and a +3 studentship can be found on pages 3 to 4. Information for students and supervisors with regards to statements and supporting statements can be found in pages 12 through to 18. Information pertaining to the shortlisting process, the interview process, how these interviews are scored, and nomination templates can be found in Annexes C through to F and pages 19 through to 29. Finally, information pertaining to specific ESRC steers and guidance can be found on pages 30 to 36. The Annex Ii is a form that is used for pathway shortlisting and interview scoring. For all applications, both 1+3 and +3 students, all sections of Annex Ii must be completed. When scoring 1+3 applicants, it is important to consider that these applicants will have not benefited from a further year of study at the graduate level. Therefore, their research proposal may be more aspirational than knowledgeable, especially with regards to research methods and aims. Additionally, these students may have also given less consideration to collaboration, impact, or novelty. There is space for additional comments, which we strongly encourage you to use to help the ARC understand the recommendations that you are making. Remember that you will be ranking your applicants, and so you will need to be able to show exactly how you have differentiated between them. This makes the accompanying narrative incredibly useful for the Awards Ratification Committee. All interviews are expected to be about 20 minutes in length. All candidates will have been asked to prepare a 5-minute oral presentation with respect to their project. No technical equipment is available for the presentation, but students can use handouts. The ARC does not need to see these. Interviews can be conducted via Skype if required. The guidance notes in Annex C will provide you with criteria for assessing these interviews and should be followed. Annex D, page 26 to 27 in the supporting document, provides information with regards to interview structure and questions. Independent chairs are strongly recommended for all pathways and are mandatory for only certain pathways. Please see page 28 of the supporting document for further information. All interviews held at the University of Exeter will require an independent chair due to university policy. All pathways will complete Annex E, the Student Application Nomination Form. An Excel version of this nomination form is available from the link provided. When making your final rank order of applications, you will want to take into consideration the overall potential of applicants and not just their scores. The ranking of the students on each pathway will generally follow the combined total of the shortlisting and interview scores. However, it is possible for a 1+3 student with an equal or lower score to be ranked above a +3 student with a higher score based upon academic potential. This decision should, however, be explained in the accompanying narrative. Any additional comments that you wish to make with regards to the applications and the applicants and your rank order would be gratefully received, especially with regards to how you have differentiated between the applicants. Again, this should be included in the narrative section. Please indicate any candidates that you think should be considered as cross-council or ESRC dataset steers, as these are steers from the ESRC that the SWDTP must meet. Finally, it is important to note that a failure to rank students appropriately and incomplete applications will result in the rejection of these applications. The host institution interview list can be found in the supporting document on page 28. This list provides information pertaining to the institutions involved in each of the pathways, which institution will be hosting the interviews this year, and whether or not an independent chair is mandatory or strongly recommended for the interview process. This year, the SWDTP has appointed institutional academic leads for each of the host institutions. The SWDTP Institutional Academic Lead will lead on all SWDTP-related communications, and they are charged with the role of raising awareness and advocating for our activities. These individuals will hold face-to-face meetings in the autumn term at their respective institutions with staff in order to answer any queries or questions that you might have with regards to the student application process or the SWDTP. Contact details for each of these academic leads are provided below. At the University of Bath, it's Dr. Sean Cumming. At the University of Bristol, Professor Jutta Veldis. At Exeter, the institutional lead is Dr. Gabriel Katz. At Plymouth, Professor Richard Yarwood, and at the University of West of England, Professor Neil Wiley. Each institution also has an appointed Institutional Administrative Coordinator. These individuals can assist you with regards to any questions that you have pertaining to administrative procedures at your host institution. They will also support pathway leads through the application, screening and interview processes. Contact information for these coordinators can be found below.